guys. Welcome to Burning Questions. Sholan, I cut you off there. I am so sorry.
No problem, fam.
See what happens when you try and be nice, Jordan.
Yeah, exactly. I should act like
sorry.
Becky Taylor now. Mbali,
Actually-
don't treat me like a garden boy, please.
He actually, sorry guys, he actually went on.
The hair. We
Thank you.
recognize the hair.
loving it.
Honorable member.
Courtesy of Begitlele and Ian. Yes, they're my blessers. But his actions were so uncalled for, guys. I think he's so dramatic, actually.
Yeah,
Like he was
I
literally running away from being accountable.
No, it's
I
crazy.
think they touched him. It hit him deep. He didn't know how to
Yeah.
react.
Shame.
Yeah, I think
Anyway.
you couldn't argue with him. He
exactly.
couldn't deal with the substance of his argument. So it was like, okay, I'm just going to default to race and struggle
Dude,
past.
and apartheid
Yeah.
talking about him eating bread food. Like, okay, so, sorry. Okay, guys, let's go into the code card for this week. And our code card comes from Mr. Ian Cruikshanks, who is a project manager at the Institute of Race Relations. And the code card is very simple and straightforward.
Terence,
And it's-
Mbali?
Terence, what did I say? Ian Corrigan. Straight.
Ian Cruikshanks.
I'm sorry. Did I say Ian Cruikshanks?
Ian was
That
very
is
cool.
he was very cool. Shame. May his soul rest in peace. Shame, right?
Yes.
What's wrong with him? Anyway, Terence Corrigan, who is a project manager at the Institute of Race Relations. And the code card is for a country that is so obsessed with its history, who often know so little about it. And the first comment says, we know our history, we remember and celebrate our history, others don't. Sholan, I don't know, you're the youngest from here. Do you know about South Africa's history through and through?
Yeah, yes. I must say, Terence is someone that I deeply respect because I know the intellectual capacity of this man. So it's very hard to sometimes argue with even the statement that he makes. I must say that, yeah, I mean, I have studied political science. I was a history addict on high school as well, and even I still struggle to grasp the historical context of South Africa because so much has occurred in our history as a country, from everything from colonialism, before colonialism, through apartheid, and now we in a democratic society. Like, a lot has happened during that period. So, and as born free, I think we're all born frees here. I'm not sure about Alex. Alex,
And
don't
Diego.
And Diego,
I
yeah.
had a bomb.
Okay, just checking. Hey, we post 1994 babies here, so yeah, I must say that we do know a lot, and a lot of people tend to make statements of like, yeah, we were so oppressed and so many things, but they do not really understand the context in which South Africa has journeyed through. So yes, I definitely think we do not celebrate it as much, but simply because I think we do not know. That's the reason, at least I think.
That's okay. And this person, Utumisani, says freedom. You wasted our time in it. So maybe people don't celebrate the freedom because, like, what freedom? What are you talking about? You know, maybe that's the other reason for that. And maybe to you, Alex, do you think our education system allows for South African kids to learn about the real South African history? Because I remember learning about Hitler, and I'm like, why should I know about Hitler and his fetish for blue eyes and straight hair? Why? Tell me about Shaka and Dingani. Tell me about those people. You know?
No, for sure. Look, I think one of my regrets is not doing history in school. I did study it at university. But yeah, I mean, I think it's important to learn about global issues such as things like the Holocaust and things. So it's important because it's a world-changing event. There's ideology behind it that is not so different from what was practiced, for example, in South African history, discrimination. And now this is where you get to the crux of the thing, where you have, there used to be the concentration camps in the Holocaust on obviously a huge scale.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that Afrikaners were put into concentration camps by the British. I think it was the early 1900s. I'm not totally sure on the timeline there, but I think the curriculum certainly is the history is written by the winners, right? So I think we might get a slightly warped perception of history, but I think there's always scope for people to learn more. But it doesn't have to come necessarily in the classroom. Like, okay, cool. We had the privilege of opting to study it at university. Like, I mean, I'd studied like slavery history from, I don't know, from like the 1500s through to the 1800s, but that was an entire half-year course at university. But the thing is, I think, the way there's so much out there, and if you think in South Africa to go from, there's people, you've got people like Steve Biko, Chris Harney, obviously the struggle, that period. You've then got people like Jan Smuts, DF Milan, these key characters. Then you go back even further before the Union of South Africa. It's just so interesting. But we tend to cherry pick whatever suits our narrative, and I think that's dangerous.
Yes, Roland?
Yeah, I was just about to add to what Alex says, is that that's very important. Our history isn't necessarily complicated, but it's more complex is a better word of using it. And we must be careful of who we lend our ear to when it comes to who those people are who are telling the story of our history. Because there are some people that are still trying to, correct some grievances that with South Africa's historical context. So it's important that we listen to objective and not storylines from people who are very sus. So we must be careful.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And then the next comment is from Stanley, and his response is, yes, it's possible for us to know so little because we have fed someone else's history at the 8 stages. How little is little? Who came to Africa and demolished the so-called history? Our history is not all written to books. Obsession, and he puts a thinking emoji. Diego, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think it goes back to the point Alex made that regarding history, that there's a lot of history in the world out there, and so it's really a matter of the people in charge of creating the curriculum appreciating the complexity of history and the complexities. But it's important that I don't think it's wrong that we learn someone else's history at early ages. I think it's human history. It's our collective human history. That's how I see the world. And so it's important to learn as much as it is possible. And I think we should try to balance as much as possible. Let's learn history from home. Let's learn history from Asia, Europe, everywhere else in the world. I mean, knowledge can never harm us. Knowing what happened in Germany since the start of the day, knowing what happened in South Africa and Nigeria, it can never kill you. If anything, it will make you more powerful. It's more knowledge. But that's my overall take around the issue.
Okay.
I was just about to add, that's a good point. Like, it actually creates empathy between each other. I mean, like, Diego, I might have never lived a day we are in Limpopo, for example, but you can still tell me like the historical context of, how not only the politics, but the traditional tribal history of how things have operated and the competing tribes and cultures in that region, where I could tell you about, why the Cape Flats is actually situated or placed the way it is right now, and actually the history.
Why? That's why.
Because
I'm interested. I'm interested in that.
I think we should actually do an entire episode on that subject. Especially we're going to delve into the history, because a lot of it comes from not only, especially like the present day colored communities. You actually see that it's not just colored people, but it's actually that there's so many tribes, as you would call it, because there's the Khoisan, there's actually people from like the Cape Malaysian, from Cape Malay, like people that come from Malaysia, Indonesia, who actually shipped here to Cape Town, brought on slave ships, and they were just designated as, oh no, you guys are all colored, mixed breed individuals. But there's so much rich culture and history that actually takes place in our part of the country again. And I mean, South Africa is a large country. We have so much vibrance and diversity happening in this country. We should celebrate it.
And ultimately, I think that's a story of humanity. It's really the history of human beings, our collective story. Sure.
Definitely. Guys, thank you for those 5 minutes chit chat. Liked it. Short, nice, simple. And I hope you at home enjoyed this segment of Burning Questions. And do remember to follow us on every social media at Pleasure of Liberty. And yeah, man, hope you guys enjoy this content. Do interact. Burning Questions definitely is a show where we respond to your comments. And yeah, man, be spicy. Don't be scared. Guys, thank you so much. Same time, same place next week.
Freedom.